At exactly 9:13 a.m., the most feared CEO in Manhattan stopped an entire office over one little girl holding a pink backpack. The elevators opened onto the 32nd floor, like they always did every morning. But this time something felt different. Employees who usually rushed between desks suddenly slowed down. Phones stopped ringing one after another. Conversations disappeared into silence. And standing near the reception desk was a tired single mother named Claire Bennett, holding the trembling hand of her 8-year-old daughter, Lily. Claire's eyes looked exhausted, like someone who hadn't slept in days. Her coat was still wet from the rain outside, and Lily's tiny sneakers left faint watermarks across the polished marble floor. Nobody spoke because everyone already knew what was about to happen. Then the office doors opened. Nathan Cole stepped out of his glass corner office with the same cold expression that made grown men nervous during meetings. He looked at Lily for only 2 seconds before his face hardened. "What is this?" he asked quietly. The room froze. Claire tried to explain. Her babysitter had canceled at the last minute. Her landlord had threatened eviction. Her daughter had nowhere else to go. She promised it would only be for one day. But Nathan Cole did not care. In front of an entire floor filled with employees too scared to even breathe loudly, he fired her on the spot. And as Claire struggled to hold back tears while grabbing her cardboard box of belongings, nobody noticed that the little girl standing beside her had already seen the one mistake that was about to destroy Nathan Cole's billion-dollar company forever. Most people who worked for Nathan Cole feared him long before they ever met him. In the business world, his name carried the kind of reputation that turned ordinary conversations quiet. Financial magazines called him the Iron Executive. Former employees described him as a man who could destroy careers with a single sentence. Investors admired him because he built Cole Dynamics from a small software startup into one of the most powerful cybersecurity companies in America. But inside the company walls, admiration often looked more like fear. Nathan believed emotions weakened people. He believed personal problems belonged at home, not inside offices. And if anyone questioned his rules, they usually disappeared before the end of the week. Claire Bennett understood those rules better than anyone. She had worked at Cole Dynamics for nearly 6 years without ever being late once. She skipped lunch breaks to finish reports. She answered emails after midnight. She accepted every extra assignment because she needed the paycheck to survive. After her husband passed away from a sudden heart condition 3 years earlier, Claire became both mother and father to Lily. Every bill, every school payment, every rent deadline was entirely on her shoulders. Most nights she barely slept, but she kept going because Lily depended on her. And for 6 straight years, she managed to hide her struggles from everyone around her. Until one terrible Tuesday morning changed everything. That morning had started before sunrise inside Claire's tiny apartment in Queens. Rain hammered against the windows while Lily sat quietly at the kitchen table, eating cereal beside stacks of unpaid bills. Claire had tried hiding under a magazine. The babysitter called at 6:12 a.m. crying because her own son had been rushed to the hospital overnight. Claire spent nearly an hour calling neighbors, parents from Lily's school, even distant relatives she barely spoke to anymore. Nobody answered. Nobody could help. She considered missing work entirely, but missing work under Nathan Cole almost guaranteed termination anyway. Claire stood in front of the bathroom mirror fighting tears while Lily watched silently from the doorway. "Mom, are we gonna be okay?" she asked softly. Claire forced a smile she didn't feel. "Of course we are." But deep down, she wasn't sure anymore. Before we go deeper into this story, let us know in the comments where you're watching from. We'd love to hear from you, and don't forget to hit that subscribe button so you never miss any of our upcoming videos. Claire finally made the decision no parent wants to make. She grabbed Lily's backpack, held her daughter's hand tightly, and boarded the subway toward Manhattan, praying nobody at work would notice. But Nathan Cole noticed immediately. That was the problem with powerful people who controlled entire rooms with their presence. They noticed everything, especially weakness, especially inconvenience. especially anything that disrupted the perfect image they spent years creating. Employees later said the entire office became silent. The second Nathan started walking toward Claire and Lily, nobody typed. Nobody moved. One employee claimed he could actually hear the rain hitting the skyscraper windows during those few seconds. Claire tried explaining herself calmly at first, then desperately. She explained the babysitter emergency. She promised Lily would stay quiet. She even offered to work unpaid overtime for the rest of the week. But Nathan stared at her without emotion. "If I make exceptions for you," he said coldly, "I'll have to make exceptions for everyone." Claire's voice cracked as she begged for one chance. Nathan didn't even raise his voice. Somehow that made it worse. "Collect your things and leave." Lily gripped her mother's hand tighter while employees looked down, pretending not to watch. Claire nodded slowly because humiliation becomes strangely quiet when it reaches a certain point. She packed family photos into a cardboard box while tears rolled down her face. And standing beside her the entire time, Lily kept staring toward a massive presentation screen inside the executive conference room nearby. Upstairs, a crisis had already begun unfolding behind closed doors. Nathan Cole was preparing for the most important investor meeting of his career. For months, Cole Dynamics had been negotiating a massive cybersecurity contract with government partners and international investors worth hundreds of millions of dollars. The presentation scheduled for that afternoon contained confidential research, financial projections, proprietary security systems, and data collected over years of development. Winning the deal would make Nathan one of the most powerful executives in the country. Losing it could destroy everything he spent 20 years building. Around 9:27 a.m., just minutes after Claire was fired, the company's lead engineer stormed into the conference room, pale with panic. The central presentation servers had failed. Entire files appeared corrupted. Backup systems refused to load. Screens filled with error messages while executives shouted over one another, trying to understand what happened. Nathan immediately demanded answers nobody could provide. IT teams rushed between server rooms, sweating through their dress shirts, while investors were already arriving downstairs. Some employees later admitted they had never seen Nathan Cole look afraid before that moment. But fear changes people quickly when billions of dollars suddenly hang by a thread. Meanwhile, Claire stood near the elevators, waiting for security clearance to leave the building permanently. She kept apologizing to Lily, even though none of this was her daughter's fault. Lily barely responded because she remained distracted by something she noticed earlier near the conference room screen. Children sometimes observe details adults miss because adults become trapped inside pressure and ego while children simply pay attention. Lily quietly tugged her mother's sleeve. "Mom," she whispered, "that computer problem upstairs. I think they opened the wrong archive." Claire barely heard her through her own heartbreak. Upstairs, executives continued panicking as technicians attempted recovery after recovery without success. One engineer accidentally triggered another system crash that erased additional folders. Nathan slammed his hand against the conference table, demanding someone fix the disaster immediately. Investors downstairs were growing impatient. Phones rang non-stop. Security teams scrambled. Then, one exhausted employee near the elevators overheard Lily speaking softly to her mother about the archive folders. At first, he ignored her, but desperation makes people listen to unusual things. "What did you just say?" he asked. Lily hesitated nervously. "I think the files are still there," she whispered. "The symbols on the screen looked like my school tablet when my projects saved into hidden folders by accident." The employee stared at her for a second before practically dragging Claire and Lily back toward the conference room, despite Claire insisting she no longer worked there. Inside, chaos filled every corner. Executives argued loudly while multiple monitors flashed warnings across the walls. Nathan Cole looked furious when Claire walked back into the room. "I thought I told you to leave." But before Claire could answer, the employee interrupted, explaining what Lily noticed. Several people actually laughed at first. An 8-year-old, solving a cybersecurity failure inside one of America's top tech companies, sounded ridiculous. Nathan himself looked insulted by the suggestion, but another engineer quietly admitted they had already exhausted nearly every option available. Lily slowly approached the frozen screen, clutching her pink backpack tightly against her chest. The room became strangely silent again. She pointed toward a tiny symbol near the bottom corner of the presentation software. "That means the files moved," she said softly, "not deleted." One engineer frowned before quickly typing commands across his keyboard. Seconds passed. Then his expression changed completely. Hidden directories suddenly appeared across the screen. The presentation files had accidentally been rerouted during an overnight automated security update. Nothing was erased. Everything remained intact. For several seconds, nobody inside the room spoke at all. Then multiple screens suddenly lit back up simultaneously as years of financial data returned line by line. Executives who moments earlier looked ready to collapse now stared in disbelief at the little girl standing quietly beside the conference table. One engineer actually laughed from pure relief. Another nearly cried. Nathan Cole remained frozen, staring at Lily as if seeing her for the first time. The same child he called a distraction less than 30 minutes earlier had just saved the biggest business deal of his entire career. Investors entered the conference room shortly afterward, completely unaware how close Cole Dynamics came to disaster. The meeting proceeded successfully. Contracts were signed. Millions were secured. But Nathan barely focused on any of it anymore. Throughout the entire presentation, his eyes occasionally drifted toward the empty seat. Where Claire had sat during years of loyal work, he never once appreciated. For the first time in a very long time, Nathan Cole felt something unfamiliar pressing heavily against his chest. Shame. People often assume powerful individuals change because of dramatic speeches or public humiliation. But sometimes change begins quietly in moments nobody else notices. After the investor meeting ended, Nathan sat alone inside his office, staring through rain-covered windows at the city below. He thought about Claire begging for one chance while employees watched silently. He thought about Lily standing nervously beside her mother, holding that pink backpack. And he thought about how easily he dismissed them both without understanding anything about their lives. Later that evening, Nathan asked Human Resources for Claire's employment file. What he found disturbed him deeply. 6 years without a single disciplinary issue. Hundreds of overtime hours never requested for compensation. Outstanding performance reviews from every department manager. Emergency medical withdrawals from her retirement savings after her husband died. Nathan realized something uncomfortable then. The company he proudly built rewarded profit, but ignored humanity completely. And that culture started with him. 3 days later, Claire received a phone call she almost ignored because she assumed it was another debt collector. Instead, it was Nathan Cole himself. At first, she thought someone was playing a cruel joke. Nathan apologized quietly in a tone employees had never heard before. He offered her job back immediately, along with a major salary increase, flexible hours, full childcare support, and paid educational assistance for Lily. Claire sat speechless, holding the phone, while Lily colored quietly beside her at the kitchen table. Nathan also announced new family support policies across every department at Cole Dynamics. Employees with childcare emergencies would no longer fear termination. Mental health services expanded. Emergency leave policies changed. Some executives resisted the changes at first, but Nathan ignored them. Because somewhere between losing control of his company and watching an 8-year-old save it, he finally understood something money never taught him. Strength without compassion eventually becomes emptiness. Months later, employees at Cole Dynamics noticed subtle differences around the office. Nathan still demanded excellence. He still ran meetings with intensity, but people no longer feared him the same way. One afternoon, an employee passing Nathan's office noticed a framed drawing sitting beside his desk. It showed a skyscraper under heavy rain with a little girl holding a pink backpack near the entrance. Underneath, written carefully in childish handwriting, were the words, "Everybody needs help sometimes." Nathan never explained why he kept it there. He didn't need to, because the truth is, Sometimes the people we overlook carry the exact answer we desperately need. And sometimes the smallest voice inside the room becomes the one that changes everything forever. Thanks for watching. Please let us know in the comments section what you think about the story and the country you are watching from. Don't forget to hit the subscribe button so you don't miss our next video.